Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Reiter, Executive Director of the Worldwide Foundation for Credit Unions, and I want to thank you all from wherever you might be across the international credit union movement to join us today on this World Council webinar. I'm really, truly honored on behalf of the Worldwide Foundation to bring to you today three distinct colleagues from the international movement who have three distinct voices to share. The Worldwide Foundation for Credit Unions is really committed to continuing to elevate the voices of credit union members and our peers around the world whose lives and communities are transformed by the work that we do collectively to make the world a better place by using credit unions. And at this year's CUNA GAC conference, the Worldwide Foundation for Credit Unions was honored to put on and host for the second time an event called Cooperative Voices, where we try to bring the impact that our donors and supporters and champions help us make through generous donations of our Global Women's Network, our WOCCU program, our credit union development work in partnership with World Council, and of course our credit union relief efforts. We try to bring individuals who have been impacted by these programs to that event so that our donors and the community can hear directly from those whose lives are being transformed. So I'm truly honored. We are truly honored to have three distinct women from three distinct corners of the international credit union community with us this afternoon or this morning here in Madison, Wisconsin. Esther from Australia, Teresa from Malawi, and Alyssa from Ukraine. And so before we get into inviting the three ladies to share their stories with you this afternoon and this morning, we really want to just do a little bit of housekeeping. So please, if you have questions, we're going to reserve the Q&A with Esther, Teresa, and Alyssa to the end of the webinar. And so please do use the chat feature within the Zoom platform to share any questions that you might have. You can obviously, as you hear them share their stories, you can provide your questions in the chat area. And obviously, please stay connected with us at the Worldwide Foundation off of our website, doglobalgood.org, to continue to stay engaged with all the great initiatives and programs that the Worldwide Foundation has to offer. So without further ado, I want to introduce the first of our three voices with you today. Esther Rajouri is since 2019 has been the policy advisor for Australia's National Association, COBA, the Customer-Owned Banking Association. And she's also been the chair of the Emerging Leaders Program through COBA as well, helping to foster and engage Australia's emerging leaders throughout that sector. In 2022, she was a WOCCU Scholarship Award recipient. And Esther had also recently, at this most recent CUNA GAC in 2023, participated in Filene's Crasher program and was one of our international delegates through that amazing experience. She's also a native of Sri Lanka and holds degrees in economics from the University of Sydney and Macquarie. I hope I pronounced that right, Esther. Apologies. So without further ado, I would love to introduce my colleague from Australia, Esther Rajouri. And Esther is joining us in the middle of the evening in Australia. So Esther, again, thank you so much. And please, we welcome you to share your story.
Thank you so much, Mike, and good morning, everyone. I'm joining you from the traditional land of the Gadigal Wangal people of the Eora Nation here in Australia, in Sydney, and I'm so pleased to be with you all today. Mike has asked me to share a little bit about my story and how global engagement through the Worldwide Foundation's program has personally helped my career and young leaders here in Australia as well. So I grew up in Sri Lanka, as Mike mentioned, in the land of tea hills, as you can see in the picture, and the city I grew up in. And at the age of 18, I moved to Australia to do my degree in economics. There's the picture of me graduating from my undergraduate program. I always had a passion for economics and the use of data and modeling to help solve some of the world's problems like income inequality and access to healthcare and education. And so after completing my degree, I joined a think tank called the McKell Institute. And at this institute, we did a lot of public policy research in healthcare, infrastructure, industrial relations, and a host of other economical issues. I put a picture there at one of our events with the then Shadow Minister for Education, and an American, John Podesta, who was the White House Chief of Staff to Bill Clinton and an economic advisor to a host of presidents, including Joe Biden. So that's in courtesy to my American friends. And then after a couple of years there, at the end of 2019, I moved to the Customer-Owned Banking Association in Australia, COBA, and that's when my journey at credit unions began. At COBA is the industry association for all of Australia's credit unions, building societies, and what we now call customer-owned banks or mutual banks. In Australia, this rebranding occurred mainly to kind of be relevant with the younger demographic in Australia. The model of credit unions is still the same. We operate like credit unions, but most of our members now have rebranded to call themselves the customer-owned banks. Hence, we are the Customer-Owned Banking Association. At the association, as Mike mentioned, I'm a policy advisor, and our role is to advocate for credit unions, tell their story to various levels of government and our regulators, and make sure that banking competition here in Australia is kept fair and honest, and that credit unions have a voice at the table when these decisions about regulations are made. So we represent 56 of the 59 credit unions in Australia. And credit unions here, just like globally, do amazing work. I thought of just highlighting a few stories of the amazing work credit unions do in Australia. One of our largest members, Bank Australia, is the only bank in the world that has its own conservation reserve. It's basically using the business of finance to build a healthier planet. Another of our members, Community First, donates half of its fee of all its credit cards to a foundation that helps Australians with breast cancer. And since it launched, this program has helped over 110,000 Australians suffering from breast cancer. The picture there, which advertises a community banking hub on a bus stop, is from 2 years ago when Australia was devastated by floods in the northern part of the state that I live in, and bank branches there were underwater. People did not have access to electricity or finance for a long time, and credit unions in that area came together and formed a community banking hub, and they located themselves, their frontline staff, in a community center, providing access to Australians for them to access finance during this time. In contrast, some of the largest banks flew in ATMs into this area, in an area that was flooded and had no access to electricity. So that is just to show you how credit unions have always been in Australia and globally have been on the front line in their communities during times of disaster, hardship, helping their customers and helping their members access finance and access services. And this is such a great sector to be a part of. At COBA, pictured on this slide is my work with our Young Leaders program. It's called the Emerging Leaders Program. It has been there for over 20 years with the credit unions. It is a nationwide professional development program, and we offer networking opportunities, training opportunities, and a place for young professionals from all across Australian credit unions to gather together, meet each other, network, and one important feature of this program is the leadership gap that it helps to bridge in accessing leaders from our sector. We have a national mentorship program that we run, which helps our young leaders be mentored by senior executives and CEOs. We also have special networking events where they can come up and engage with the leaders of our sector to hear from them, learn from them, and know about help them become passionate advocates for the sector. The theme for our program last year was giving back to community, and pictured there on the top left on my screen is at our annual convention where we gathered together to build solar light hubs, battery operated hubs, to help communities who don't have access to electricity and help kids during times when they have to go to school or do their homework without electricity. They could use this battery operated light. And this year, our theme for the program is leading communities with purpose through hard times. Australia and globally, we are facing a harsh economic environment, rising rates of homelessness and income inequality. And as young leaders, we have decided we want to lead the way in helping people access banking that is centered on people and communities. And that brings me, my work with the program brings me to the global engagement that it has offered me through the World Young Credit Union Professionals Program. WOCCU and the Worldwide Foundation, it sponsors the World Young Credit Union Professionals Program, WYCUP, and they offer a scholarship annually to credit union professionals, young credit union professionals, to attend their World Conference. And in 2022, I was privileged enough to be one of these recipients to attend the World Conference in Glasgow in Scotland. And at this conference, I got to engage with some of the most passionate champions of credit unions globally from all across the world. On the corner there is a picture of all of our scholarship winners on stage receiving our medals. And on the top right is a picture with my CEO, Michael Lawrence of COBA, on the world stage after we received our awards. It was a fun experience. I got to learn from credit union professionals, both senior leaders, but also the young people sharing their passion for the movement. It really kind of broadened my horizons, and it taught me about the various ways credit unions are helping their communities. I was able to bring that back into Australia to ignite our young leaders, to remind them that we are part of this global movement. Sometimes all the way down here in Australia, we kind of feel a bit left out, and we are regulated like banks, we are looked at like banks. So it is a good reminder to be a part of this global movement that is still keeping the legacy of credit unions alive. And through this opportunity, I also, as Mike mentioned, got to this year attend the Government Affairs Conference in Washington, D.C., and was privileged to also be a part of the Crasher program. A shout out to a few Crashers who are on this webinar today. The picture there and on the top left is from the conference in February. It was yet again another enriching experience where I got to meet and, more than anything, just learn from all the great initiatives that are being done by credit unions, be inspired yet again by the passion in this movement, and then bring that back to my colleagues here at COBA and also the young leaders in Australia, and open their eyes to what's possible. A key feature of this is this year in our mentorship program, we are actually featuring some Crasher mentors, which I'm so excited about, because our young leaders here in Australia are now going to be mentored by some passionate, amazing people over from America. And I'm so excited for this mentorship program to begin. So that kind of wraps up my story and how global engagement has helped me both personally and the movement here. I'm grateful to all the work the foundation does and the World Young WYCUP program, previously under Thomas and now under Ari. And I look forward to continuing to engage with this program and helping our young leaders here in Australia. Thanks, Mike.
Esther, thank you so much for joining us literally in the middle of the night, your time there in Sydney, in Australia, to share the impact that you make locally across the Australian credit union sector, and obviously internationally by all the various engagements that you've participated in, not just this year, but in previous years. So thank you so much for joining us. And Esther's going to stay on with us through the end of the webinar. And if you've got questions for her related to her WYCUP scholarship experience, questions about the Australian credit union movement through COBA, she'll be happy to answer those. I now want to turn over and introduce our second cooperative voice of the day, Teresa Margarita. She is the general manager of Moody Sako in Malawi, Africa, and is also the Malawi Sister Society leader of the Global Women's Leadership Network, and holds certifications as a CUDE. I don't know if there are any CUDEs, both domestically and internationally. Please show yourselves through the Q&A or through the chat feature. She's also a graduate of both the US DE and the African DE programs, and is an alumni of the Cooperative Development Foundation's Women Mentorship Program, and serves as vice chair for the African Women in Co-ops Network funded and supported by WOCCU, the National Confederation of SACCOs in Africa. And I do not, of course, want to fail to mention that she is the mother of 4 daughters and the wife of a pastor in Malawi. So with true pleasure, Teresa, great to see you on camera, and please, we welcome you to share your story.
Thank you so much, Mike. I like that I'm a mother of 4 daughters. Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. I'm happy that I'm one of the voices to speak to the wider range of network within our movement. Teresa Margret's cooperative journey started in 1998 with Malawi Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives, MUSCO, the apex body for all the SACCOs in Malawi. For the sake of other participants who are coming from other countries, the credit unions are the same as the savings and credit unions. In Malawi, we call them SACCOs. So my cooperative journey started in 1998 with MUSCO as a finance officer. And in MUSCO, I worked under various departments, including inspection, monitoring, and examination departments, as well as business development departments. What was so interesting is that in those 2 departments, I was the only lady. And for me, I took it as a learning ground for my career and for my career progression. Little did I know that it was a preparatory ground for a bigger challenge ahead, because later on I saw another opportunity in Modi SACCO. That was in 2012. I applied for the position of the general manager for the Modi SACCO, and after going through a series of interviews, I was picked. And I became the general manager for Modi SACCO. General manager for Modi SACCO is the same as the CEO for Modi SACCO. And that was another challenge. And in those days, that was in 2012, few women were in the positions of the general managers in Malawi SACCOs. And less than 10% of women were in those positions. And those who were in those positions were in the small SACCOs. So for me, it was another challenge. And the SACCO by then was also experiencing a number of challenges, including retarded membership growth. Also, the SACCO was operating manually. It did not have the strategic development plan. Looking at the loan portfolio to total assets, it was only 40%, which is so low. And also the image of the SACCO was so poor. Also, looking at the delinquency, it was as high as 45%. And it was really a big challenge for me. I remember some members were doubting my capability to turn around the SACCO. But for me, I had strategies on how I can turn around the SACCO. And even my colleagues then within the SACCO and from other SACCOs were also despising me and treating me with contempt. But for me, I said, I'll take this challenge, I'll turn around this challenge, this SACCO, to benefit the members of the SACCO. And that was now in 2013, when Dr. Brian Blanche, the former World Council for Credit Unions president and CEO, came to Malawi. And it happened that he visited my SACCO. And he is the one who introduced me to the Global Women's Leadership Network. And Global Women's Leadership Network was a game changer for my performance and my career. I became connected. Then he asked me if I can form a sister society in Malawi. I accepted that. I said, I'll take it up and I'll form the sister society in Malawi. And Malawi is the pioneer sister society in Africa. We started with only five women. I mobilized managers, general managers within the SACCOs, 5 of us. Then we sat down and came up with the concept, which we took it to the national apex, Malawi Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives, MUSCO. By then, the CEO was the late Sylvester Kadzola. He accepted us to go on with the formation of our sister society. That was the formation of Malawi Sister Society. Then I tried to apply for the Global Women's Leadership Network. That was in the same year. But unfortunately, because of the visa problems, I didn't make it to Canada. But I didn't just sit back and watch. In the next year, I also tried my luck to apply for the Global Women's Leadership Network. Then I was selected. I was one of the scholars to go to Australia, Gold Coast. And then I had to come up with a project, which I presented to ladies in Gold Coast. And that project is for the women empowerment, just to empower women in our circles and in my circle, because by then, the representation of women in my circle was only 17.5%. And looking at that, I said, let me take this as an opportunity to empower women, and also to make sure that even at board level, the women representation goes up, because by then it was only 10%. Out of 7 board members, only 1 was a woman. So, you know, when you empower women, when you financially empower women, you empower the whole house. And I was like, when these women are financially empowered, they'll be able to take care of their homes, of their necessities in their homes and the like, and also they'll be there to assist their spouses in each and everything that goes around the home. When I get to Australia, under the Global Women's Leadership Network Scholarship, I was inspired when I met a lot of amazing women as well as men who changed my thinking. And I said, when I go back to Malawi, I'm going to strengthen Malawi Sister Society, because by then I didn't have that connection. But when I came back, I said, I'll strengthen the Malawi Sister Society, and Malawi Sister Society has to be impactful to our women in circles in Malawi, and even to the community in Malawi. And that was when my thinking changed, and I now started thinking of developing myself. I registered for the master's degree in financial management, and in 2017, I graduated with a master's degree in financial management. And also because of my presence, and also what I was going through and what I was doing in the country, now our local TV started now recognizing, noticing what we were doing in Malawi through Malawi Sister Society. And I've been featured on our local programs on TV, as well as in the local newspapers. That was a step ahead for me to grow my career and to progress with my career. And other reputable companies started approaching. And as I am talking, I am the only female member in one of the leading companies in Malawi under the government department. And I'm the only lady in the board of 12 members. This also gave me strength because of my trip, and because of getting connected to the women I met in Australia. Another game changer to my career progression and my performance is the Development Educators Program. This is the program which is initiated by World Foundation for Credit Unions. And with the knowledge I acquired from the Development Educators Program, it also helped me to change and also to perform better in my circle. In 2018, I did my ADE, that was in the Gambia. And in 2019, I proceeded to do my CUDE in America. And in 2022, I did the Advanced Africa Development Educator. These are the programs which helped me to change the numbers in my circle, and also to make impact to community through Malawi Sister Society. From those DE programs, I came up with the projects, Women Empowerment Project under ADE, and also CUDE, I came up with inclusion. And you have seen the numbers. We increased our membership by 463%. And also we increased the women representation in our circle by 40% from 17.5. And also women represented in the board, it grew up to 40% from 10%. Now the board of 7 members, we have 3 women on the board. Our total loan portfolio increased by 1,876%. And also the delinquency, which was at 45%, as high as 45%, it has reduced to 1.3%. These are the programs which have helped me to come up with ideas on how we can grow our Malawi Sister Society. Our Malawi Sister Society is also doing a lot in terms of capacity building to women. We also include our He for She's to be part and parcel of our programs in Malawi when we're coming up with different programs. They are helping us, and we are also capacitating women on mentorship, coaching, as well as leadership trainings, especially to those who are in executive committees. As Malawi Sister Society, we are also into community outreach. We are doing a number of charitable donations to different organizations, government departments, like we are sponsoring 4 students, 3 in the high school and 1 in university to go on with their education, to progress in their academic education. And also we have constructed pit latrines to the schools, especially the schools with people with special needs. We have donated a number of items to different hospitals and also to different schools to help our children, our students within Malawi, and also to sensitize community that Malawi Sister Society is there, not only to capacitate women, not only to advance credit unions women into leadership positions, but also we are also concerned with their well-being. As Malawi Sister Society, we are also doing outreach and inclusion activities. Within Malawi, we have formed 3 other sister societies within our chapters. Our chapters are divided into regions: Southern region, Northern region, and Central region. We call them chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. We have formed these 3 sister societies just to make sure we reach out to a wider number of women within the circle movement, so that each and every woman should be participating to our activities within having the hassles of transportations and the like. Currently, with this setup, at least we have seen at least 10 women promoted to different managerial positions within their circles. And also we have seen 3 women within our membership becoming the CEOs in sister circles. Currently, our membership is 150. And we have also assisted, as Malawi Sister Society, we have also assisted other countries within Africa to come up with their own sister societies. Currently, we have 13 countries in Africa which have sister societies. And as a circle now, we have gone beyond in outreach and inclusion. We started the youth programs as part of the CUDE project on inclusion. We introduced youth savings for our students in secondary schools, primary schools, and even those who are in universities to join circles and to start saving with circles. We say you start teaching a child whilst young how to invest, so that they should come up with a better decision, financial decisions when they grow up. I would like to thank World Foundation and World Council of Credit Unions for coming up with these programs, which are impacting our lives personally and also impacting our circles, credit unions, and also our community at large. What you need to do is to know your dream, and also you should own your dream. You also need to be in your dream and also act on your dream. Without action, your dream is dead. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mike.
Teresa, truly a champion, not just of credit unions and SACCOs in Malawi and your home community and transforming your own house, as you so aptly and eloquently put it, but you're truly a champion of growing SACCOs across Africa, as well as being such an amazing international ambassador of all that credit unions have to offer through the Worldwide Foundation, through the Global Women's Leadership Network, and through so many other ancillary system partner leadership opportunities and empowerment opportunities. So we're truly blessed and honored to have you here with us today. And thank you so much for sharing your story with our international community. We've got a lot of great questions for both Esther and Teresa, so please keep them coming, and we'll conduct a Q&A shortly after the conclusion, after our third and final voice of the afternoon and morning and evening, depending on where you are. It's truly an honor for me to introduce Alyssa Stetstichin. She has been working with the World Council and the Worldwide Foundation since 2017. More specifically, she's been a communications and interpreter consultant and staff member in collaboration and coordination with WOCCU's Credit for Agriculture Producers Project in Ukraine. As well, more recently, I've had the honor and privilege to work with Alyssa every single day in facilitating and deploying our Ukrainian Credit Union Displacement Fund and Turkish Cooperative Earthquake Relief Fund over the past year. Alyssa's been instrumental in helping us design, in partnership with our colleagues in Ukraine, various relief grant programs that are helping provide immediate need to Ukraine's credit union system and their member communities as well. So, and before I introduce Alyssa or have her come on, she also speaks 5 languages, which I am completely jealous and impressed with, and it currently lives in Vienna with her husband. So, without further ado, I'd love to introduce Alyssa Stetstichin.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Mike, thank you for such a nice introduction. Suddenly feel proud of myself. So as Mike said, I'm a Ukrainian national, currently living in Vienna with a part of my family, but another part of my family is still in Ukraine, stays in Ukraine, and I'm actually from the east of Ukraine, which is right now heavily shelled. So unfortunately, that's the reality we live with. Talking about credit unions, not to start with the tragic things at once, my experience is a bit different. So I haven't worked in the credit unions or the credit union leagues, but my experience with cooperating with credit unions started in 2017 when I joined the Credit for Agricultural Producers project in Ukraine, which is USAID funded and implemented by the World Council of Credit Unions, as Mike mentioned, as translator interpreter first. And then moving to the position of the communications and translation lead. So the project goal is actually increase access to affordable finance for micro, small, and medium-sized agricultural producers and farmers. That's why you can see on the pictures me with on the field with some great cows and the apple garden. As a communications person, I was actually privileged, and I still am privileged because I'm still serving as a consultant with the project. To me, it's a lot of credit union members, a lot of credit union borrowers, mostly among the farmers. And that's why, I know for sure how important credit unions in Ukraine are and how they actually help, because that's a part of my job to interview those people who benefit from the credit union products. And what I keep hearing from all those people when I ask the question, why are you with a credit union? They say it's fast, it's convenient, and I can trust those people. And that's, I think, the best description of what the credit unions do worldwide and in Ukraine as well. Unfortunately, right now, we have a difficult situation, as I think most of you know, in Ukraine, but we keep fighting back. And thanks to the World Council and the Worldwide Foundation for actually establishing the Ukrainian Credit Union Displacement Fund, I have an honor to join this great team with another area of work. So as you know, just a couple of days after the full-scale war was launched by Russia against Ukraine, the Worldwide Foundation launched its displacement fund for Ukraine. And I had a chance to design together with my colleagues on the ground and my international colleagues, some of the programs. We actually raised up to 1.8 million. So thanks to all our donor community. And in 2022, we launched and completed 7 relief programs. They are divided into 2 blocks. So first block is to help credit unions themselves, to help them continue running their businesses, to help them continue serving their members, although the situation is, of course, extraordinary and very unstable. So we helped cover partially the operational expenses of the associated credit unions in Ukraine. as well as compensated some of the lost income on loans provided by credit unions to servicemen in Ukraine. In addition, we dispersed some support for the Ukrainian Credit Union Association. And once the winter was coming, it was late autumn when Russia started firing the power infrastructure and critical infrastructure in Ukraine with the goal to make people more scared, with the goal to make people surrender, which didn't happen. And Ukraine went successfully, and the brave Ukrainian people went successfully through all the power outages and lack of heating during this winter. And we helped Ukrainian credit unions to continue work in their offices, thanks to the program, which was about alternative power sources like power generators, power stations, power banks, so that they can still serve their members who need their help. Another block that we had was devoted to supporting farmers who are credit union members and borrowers, because, as you know, Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe, as we call it, and actually contributes a lot to the food security worldwide. That's why continuing the efforts of our agricultural producers, which I met already after the full-scale war started, their commitment is enormous. And one of them during the interview told me, it's like, we can't stop sowing no matter the risks, because if we don't sow, people in other places in the world will face hunger. So, I mean, people who are actually struggling, fighting back the aggressor, they still keep thinking as farmers how to help other people in the world. And that's why, together with my colleagues from CAP project in Ukraine, we designed 2 programs to support food security and agricultural production in Ukraine. We reimburse the loan principals for micro agri producers to minimize the burden they face during the war, as well as we provided small and medium-sized farmers with coupons for free diesel fuel, which is, of course, extremely important for continuing the agricultural production. As the first step, we also helped with displaced people, and a lot of people from the east of Ukraine were moving to the west without leaving the country, and they needed some resettlement support. So that's what we also provided. Speaking about the impact we had during this period, it's only 1 year, but it seems like eternity for Ukraine. That was one of the hardest years we've ever had. But you can see on this slide, you can see just a small number of photos that we received from people who are in Ukraine, who continue to work in Ukraine. They don't leave the country. And as they say, life goes on. So we managed together and with our donor community, and thanks to their generous donations, we managed to help more than 90 credit unions on the ground to provide over 285 alternative power sources to help credit unions and their branches operate even when there is no power, no electricity, like for 2 days. We helped over 2,000 agricultural producers to continue their operations and contribute to food security. We helped over 8,000 internal refugees to receive the very needed humanitarian aid. With all that said, the war is still not over, and Ukraine continues to fight back and to hope for this victory, which, fingers crossed, will be very soon, and we will start the stage of rebuilding and restoring everything which was destroyed by Russians in our country. For this, we will need more support from international community, and we are ready to help more the credit unions do their amazing job on the ground. So if you feel interested in helping us in this way, you can always use the QR code you're seeing or go to the website of the Worldwide Foundation Do Global Good and help us with your donations, support, recommendations, anything you deem relevant to help this amazing country I'm from win this war and rebuild and be prosperous. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa, so much for your heartfelt narrative and speaking on behalf of the Ukrainian credit union system. Again, as I stated in my introduction of you, it's truly been an honor to be able to work with you every single day to assist and support Ukraine's credit unions and credit union member communities with the generous donations that we've received from all over the world. Nearly an unprecedented record amount of charitable contributions that have come through the Worldwide Foundation's Project Stormbreak Fund to allow us to create the Ukrainian Credit Union Displacement Fund and conduct the various relief programs and grant activities that you mentioned. So thank you again for sharing your narrative with us. And Alyssa and I are of like mind because we're always actively trying to generate more charitable support for the critical work that you heard Alyssa speak to, and also Esther and Teresa with respect to support of the WOCCU and the Global Women's Network programs. On this final slide of the webinar, we do have 2 QR codes. Each of them offers each of you the opportunity to make a charitable contribution to continue to support Ukraine's credit union system in the face of the ongoing war with various grant relief programs that Alyssa and the Worldwide Foundation continue to spearhead. We also, as you probably have obviously seen over the last weeks and months, we've reached out in support of our Turkish cooperative colleagues as well, and have deployed a earthquake relief fund and have to date raised nearly $60,000 of support that we're going to be funneling to the Turkish cooperative sector in support of helping them create temporary office shelters to keep Turkish cooperatives supporting members and supporting community even in the wake of the tragic earthquake that befell that country. So if you are feeling generous or in a position to be able to make a charitable donation, please, during the Q&A before the webinar concludes, we would very much welcome and appreciate any contributions that come through both of those relief funds. We do have a series of questions for all 3 of our panelists, and I'd like to start with Esther, if that's all right. The question goes to Esther. How do you manage all of what you have said, knowing that there is how do you guide young people to kind of step by step engaged into the credit union movement? I know you talked a little bit about your pathway very specifically, but do you have anything to add with respect to the intentionality of how to get engaged and started as an emerging leader within the credit union system, and what would be your words of encouragement and mentorship to those emerging leaders that are in the audience today?
Thanks, Mike. The good news is that the young people, research has shown, and also just from anecdotally talking to the emerging leaders both in Australia and globally, young leaders seem very keen and passionate to do things that are meaningful, giving back to community, purposeful, and they truly understand the difference and the value proposition of the credit unions as opposed to other financial services. So I think the engagement part on that sense is just if you are a young leader and you're looking, I guess different parts of answers to this question. If you are a young leader and looking how to engage, most likely your credit union or your national body will be doing something in this area. And they'll be having programs, whether it's networking or professional development programs. And I'd encourage you to say yes more often than you say no. Participate, put your hand up. And also, if you have a senior leader that you admire and respect and want to learn from, just walk up to them and ask them to be a mentor to you, and ask them how you can contribute more to your institution and how you can contribute more to the wider movement. The global movement is just an added bonus to all of this. If you're working nationally, WOCCU allows all young professionals from all over the world to join their networks. I know There's networking Zoom meetings that happen through WCCU where you can engage, you can connect on their various platforms on LinkedIn and, the different ways that WCCU talks to their young professionals. So there's quite a few avenues. I think young people are already motivated and they want to know how they can make a difference. So it's really creating those pathways and talking to people, talking to your colleagues. The difference in credit unions that I have found working in Australia is that the senior leaders and the CEOs, they're always willing to help. They're willing to share their story. So, and you don't get that in a lot of industries where there's that willingness to mentor the next generation of leaders. So I think if you are a young leader, you should really take advantage of that and reach out. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn or email, and I can share with you what we're doing here, and hopefully that will help.
Thank you, Esther. And actually, one more question that kind of dovetails with your response. First of all, well, two-part question. One is a webinar participant asked, how do you manage from a time management perspective, how did you fit in all the various activities that that you articulated earlier on the webinar? And then secondarily, so was there a time management strategy, I guess, is the best way to summarize that question. And then the second question from a colleague from the Caribbean, Jenny Lynn. Hello, Jenny Lynn. Thank you for being on today. Did you feel like were there any challenges in asserting yourself to your more more, I guess, seasoned or quote unquote older colleagues in leadership? It sounds like you may have answered part of that question by just leaning in and engaging them and expressing your interest and passion for wanting to elevate yourself and your impact on the credit union system.
Yeah, so I'll start with answering the latter part of that question. In terms of that, I think let your work speak for itself. If you're doing good work, it usually gets noticed, and you can help, and that helps senior leaders take notice. The advantage, again, that I faced, our CEO at COBA is very supportive of the Young Leaders Program. He has been a massive champion of it, and therefore allows the opportunity for it to flourish and, engage in various ways. There are also senior leaders in credit unions, maybe not everyone, but there are some CEOs who are truly passionate about empowering the next generation. So I would say get behind these people and ask them to be your support and your champions to help you show the value proposition of empowering young people. And the reality is that in 2022, Australia, and I'm sure globally, they're facing a huge problem of talent retention. Like staff turnover is very high across industry in credit unions. And executives have actually come up to us as young leaders and asked, how can we keep young people motivated? Because they seem to be they are leaving. And also, how can we, as credit unions, attract younger customers? Because the demographic trends towards the older demographic, at least in Australia. So I think they actually need us, they need us to come up with these solutions, and they need us to put ourselves in the shoes of a young customer and think, why would I bank with a credit union as opposed to a bank? And then if all else fails, my philosophy is it's easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. So, but don't quote me on that. I have been privileged enough to have leaders that have supported me. And I'm sure if you are working for a credit union, you can find that too. The other question about time management, personally, I like having a lot of things on my plate. I work well when I'm multitasking and doing a lot of things. Different people work in different styles, and I think you can expand your capacity as you take on more challenges. If you want to do big things, your capacity tends to expand with that. And I don't recommend sacrificing sleep or any of those essential things. But I think there's room if you plan your schedule and just, manage your diary well, say no to things that are draining on your time. You can really focus on things that are close to your heart and that you really want to be involved in, would be my answer.
Thank you so much, Esther. Great questions. Two questions now for Teresa. One from a colleague within Malawi about, with respect to all the change and all the value that you articulated in your story with respect to the Global Women's Leadership Network, the Sister Society in Malawi, did you encounter any resistance within the Malawi credit union community, or was it fairly don't want to say easy, that's not the right word I want to use, but was it a smoother road than what perhaps you might have expected? And then the second question, I'm going to bundle the two questions to you in one. There's a question from colleagues about has the Malawi Sister Society played a larger role, or can it play a larger role in helping to establish sister societies in other parts of Africa, Ethiopia, for example, perhaps in Eastern Africa? So kind of wanted to bundle both of those questions for you at one time, Teresa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, to start with the first question, it wasn't a smooth road. It was a thorny path to go through. And you know, when it comes to change, most of us, we resist to change. And it's like, most of us, we are like a risk averse. If I take this way, if something bad happens, what will happen? So it wasn't a smooth road for Malawi Sister Society to get established to where it is now. We started it became active in 2017, but we started in 2013, 2014 thereabouts, 2012 thereabouts. So you can see that we have gone through a lot for us to be where we are. When we are talking of 150 members, it didn't come on a silver platter. We had to do a lot. And sometimes when you don't know what is it all about, you don't partake. So as my sister study, we had to do a lot of sensitization, starting with our own circles, going to the chapters, and also going to the main AGM of Moscow. When we took it to the annual general meeting for Malawi Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives, that's when now people became understanding what Malawi Sister Society is all about, what Global Women's Leadership Network is all about. So it wasn't a smooth path. In fact, our target is to reach 500 members, not just in numbers, but we want to make impact to community and as well as to our circle women. Coming to the second question about the role of extending to other Eastern region, maybe of Africa, Southern Africa, Eastern, Western Africa. Yes, I'm also the Vice Chairperson for Africa Women in Co-ops, initiated by ACOSCA. ACOSCA is a continental board of all in Africa. So with the help of ACOSCA, we are also reaching that far. When I said 13 countries, which are sister societies, it's not only Southern Bloc, but it also includes some countries in Eastern, in the Western as well. So we are trying to make strides together with Africa Women in Co-ops through ACOSCA to reach out to a good number of countries to form their sister societies in their own countries. Thank you so much. I think I have tackled all the two questions which were forwarded to me.
As you were answering those two questions, there was a third one that I found in the Q&A. I'm kind of looking at both the chat and the Q&A simultaneously to make sure I don't miss anything. There was a question, I believe, around what is your vision for the Malawi Sister Society like over the next decade? Are there specific challenges that you want to focus the sister society's work, time, and attention on, or perhaps there's another layer of a vision that you might have for the sister society there?
Thank you so much, Mike. Oh yes, we have a vision for Malawi Sister Society. It's not only me working with the Malawi Sister Society. We have National Executive Committee led by Rose Nyambi and also viced by the LC. So together, we are trying to come up with plans, and also with the chapter sister societies, the executive of chapter sister societies, we come together, come up with plans on how we can improve and also we can grow in the next years to come. So as I said earlier on, our plan is to grow in numbers at least by 500. We want to impart to 500 women in Malawi circles, and also we want to sensitize a lot of women within our circles. Much as we have women in our circles, but the majority, they don't take it seriously. They just think maybe this is for these people, this is for these people, but we want everyone to get involved in what we're doing. So we have lined up a number of activities and also plans to achieve. So we are doing and we have a number of strategies on how we can achieve what we want to plan, what we want to achieve, at least by 500 members within our sister society. And also we want to get to be known in all the regions within Malawi, that we have sister society. Apart from advancing women, credit union women into those positions, we are also into community outreach and also into inclusion. So this is what we're doing. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Teresa. Again, excellent and inspirational work that you're doing through the Malawi Sister Society and through your SACO as general manager. And a few questions for Alyssa related both to Ukraine and Turkey. There was some interest by our webinar attendees to invite you to speak in a little bit more detail around our Turkish relief efforts with respect to the relief fund. I know you are the agent for the Worldwide Foundation that's engaging directly with our cooperative partner on the ground in Turkey. So would you mind maybe just sharing a little bit more about the Turkish relief activities that we're hoping to fund? And then secondarily, of course, to Ukraine, a lot of messages, as you see from our colleagues on the webinar, encouraging ongoing resilience and support of Ukraine's credit union system. You've had the opportunity to go back to Ukraine several times in the past year and a half. Any other narratives or stories that you could share after speaking directly to a lot of the beneficiaries of both the CAP project through the World Council and the Worldwide Foundation's displacement fund?
Thank you, and thank you for all the kind words in the chat. I was like really touched every time I try to do my best and not cry when I see all this enormous global support we get. So thank you again. Regarding the Turkish Cooperative Earthquake Relief Fund, well, first of all, I would say, like, once you understand what the pain is yourself, you can think about the pain of others in a different way, in a kind of not connected way. So when the Turkish when the earthquakes happened in Turkey in early 2023, that's when the Worldwide Foundation launched the relief fund, and as of now we've raised over $50,000 and we're cooperating with the Central Union of Agricultural Credit Cooperatives in Turkey, Terim Kredi, and we're designing the first program to help them after these devastating earthquakes, which happened mostly in 2 provinces. The Central Union has individual credit unions in this area, and their offices are mostly destroyed, but their members need support and they need to continue serving their members. That's why they need containers, like mobile containers, as temporary offices to replace those which are destroyed. And some people lost their homes, also credit union members, and these are going to be the mobile containers with shower, with some kind of kitchen, so that people can have some place to stay and not only work, and a kind of safe workplace too. So the Worldwide Foundation is about to release a grant to buy 10 of that containers for different credit unions in Turkey. As we move forward, I think we will design some more programs depending on the needs that the Turkish credit cooperatives will have in their stage of rebuilding. Coming back to Ukraine, I would like to say that I keep going home every 2 or 3 months, starting from April 2022. And what I can see among my friends and colleagues, there's always hope, and there is the strong feeling of the fact that we are doing a good job to finally get rid of that influence that we had for centuries, and people are very, very strong and very brave and are ready to fight till the end. But of course, it means that we need more support. And as we move forward, we understand that there are some systematic troubles in the credit union community right now. So the credit unions will need more systematic approach in assistance, which means we need to provide more digitalization to Ukrainian credit unions. And that's what we're thinking about as the next programs for early recovery. The first stage would potentially include helping credit unions with the core banking system, and we are thinking about different ideas of how to to make that happen. And another thing, of course, is the most important is I think we have a lot of credit union people here. The best thing to do is to have an opportunity to continue doing the business. For that, mostly Ukrainian credit unions need liquidity support, and that's another idea for the early recovery stage that we are considering right now together with our colleagues from the CAP project and from the World Council. And this is what can give people an opportunity to provide more loans to help more people during this difficult time. And I think that this is the first thing we can start with right now before the war ends. But of course, there will be more needs once the war is over and once we win this war finally, and we'll go to restoration of all the processes in peacetime. So that's briefly it. I hope that answers the questions, Mike. And thanks again for having me.
It does, Alyssa. Thank you so much for giving our audience a deeper detail of our work with our Turkish cooperatives, and of course, painting a picture of what Ukrainian credit union sectors rebuilding and recovery looks like long-term, and how ongoing donations and support from all corners of the international credit union community and even beyond credit unions will help continue to strengthen and uplift Ukraine's credit union system and Ukraine overall post-war, and hopefully the war ends, of course, sooner rather than later. Again, I want to thank Esther, Teresa, and Alyssa for taking their time in sharing their narrative again with us, for traveling to Washington, D.C. a month ago as part of our Cooperative Voices event. I want to give a special thanks to CUNA Mutual Group, our sponsor both of the Cooperative Voices event in GAC at GAC, as well as this webinar. A special thanks to the people behind the scenes of our WOCCU webinar team who make these educational and valuable webinars possible. Thank you so much, guys, for always making it a smooth experience for us. And just before we sign off, continue to be blessed, continue to cooperate in growing our movement overall internationally. And as we say at the Worldwide Foundation, continue to help us do global good around the world and in lives everywhere using credit unions. Be blessed, be safe, and we'll talk soon.